The American Homebrewers Association has a special holiday promotion running now through December. Buy a 1-year prepaid membership gift card for $43 and choose a free gift to go along with it. You can buy the gift card for a fellow brewer or for yourself. The free gift options are Brewing Local by Stan Hieronymus, For the Love of Hops by Stan Hieronymus, and a stainless steel tumbler that doubles as a koozie. Visit homebrewersassociation.org to order. That's homebrewersassociation.org. Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, December 14th, 2017. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week we spent some time at Superior Bathhouse Brewery with owner and brewer Rose Schweikhart, who will walk us through a tasting and give us tips on brewing some of the fun and delicious beers she brews with National Park water from Hot Springs National Park, Arkansas. If you go to basicbrewing.com, you can find archives of our audio and video shows, our DVDs, our brewer's logbooks, and other Basic Brewing gear. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Basic Brewing and find our show page on Facebook. We have a cool Basic Brewing app on iTunes and Amazon.com, and we're found all over the place where fine podcasts are served up. And if you'll do us the favor of rating us on iTunes and maybe leaving a nice comment, that'll help new listeners find us, or at least that's what I hear. If you want to support us financially, check out patreon.com/Basic Brewing. On Friday, I'll post a Basic Brewing video episode that Steve Wilkes and I shot comparing two dry yeasts that I used to brew a split batch Saison, Safale T58 and Bella Saison yeast. Steve and I did a triangle test. Did we pick out the right one? We don't have the best track record, but did we? Where were we able to do it? You'll just have to see on Friday. However, Patreon subscribers who have subscribed at the $5 level and legacy PayPal subscribers have already had access to that video since this past Friday. And Patreon $2 subscribers have access to the recipe that I used as well. We're slowly but surely gaining Patreon subscribers, like I said last week, trying to fill the associate link void that we experienced a few months ago. Thanks to everybody who's helping us out in that regard. We're getting some great stories for our annual disaster show. I'm getting together with Steve this weekend to record it. So if you have a story of brewing gone wrong, and maybe with some redemption at the end of that, or at least lessons learned, send it to james@basicbrewing.com by Friday. Steve's Brew Shop and Basic Brewing will be sponsoring the show this year, so the best stories will get goodies from Steve and me. And so we just decided to be self-promotional this year, since we're going to be recording it at Steve's shop. Let's take a quick look into the mailbag with a letter from Phil. Phil says, I've been brewing extract beers now for a year and a half. Half of that time I've used the short boil method, with great success. We've talked about the 15-minute brew method here on the show many, many times. Phil says, I've brewed everything from Berliner Weiss-style beers to porters. I use many types of hops, but keep mainly German Magnum for bitter additions. It works very well for the short boil and does not have a bold flavor and aroma effect with the short boil. The short boil is great with a busy lifestyle. Phil also says, I'd like to say that I, too, have toyed around with kombucha, SCOBY beer. I made a Berliner-style Weiss a few months ago that was tart and funky. I used wheat dry malt extract, honey malt, 0.2 of an ounce of German Magnum at 20 minutes, and Idaho 7 hop hash as a dry hop, and Bella Saison yeast. Very tasty, Phil says, and juicy with a great tart twist. Around 15 IBUs, 6% ABV. I did find that the SCOBY fermented the wort some, so when I boiled after SCOBY fermentation, I added back a bit of fermentables to make up for the boil-off of alcohol. So far, have had no bottles re-ferment, which is a better luck than I had with my SCOBY beer. Phil says, I have played with kombucha and mead. Last year I made some meads and, when fermented, added to another carboy with equal parts kombucha and let set for a month. Turned out very nice and quite funky. Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Phil. I love it when I talk about or do brews that I think are innovative or experimental, and someone writes in and says, yeah, I do that. And then they usually share details that expand my knowledge even more. And sometimes I even remember it. Rarely I remember who told me what, but, the Christmas/holiday gift-giving season is upon us. And what is the most foolproof gift for homebrewers? Gift certificates. And now until the end of December, our sponsors, Desiree and Dave of High Gravity in Tulsa, are offering gift certificate bundles on HighGravityBrew.com. That's right. Through the end of December, High Gravity is offering a bundling special on gift certificates. If you buy a $50 gift certificate, you'll get a second $5 one for free. If you buy a $100 gift certificate, you get a $10 one for free. And if you buy a $1,000 certificate, you'll get a $100 certificate bundled with it for free. That's through the end of December. Check out HighGravityBrew.com for details. What can you buy with a $1,000 gift certificate? An electric brewing system that will make 2018 very happy indeed. Tell Santa. I sure love my high-gravity electric system with the Warthog controller. It really fits the way I brew. It's very flexible, let's say. Find your dream system at HighGravityBrew.com. That's HighGravityBrew.com. Now, you've heard Rose Schweikhart on this program before. All the way back in March of 2015, I had Rose on with John Palmer to talk about her unique brewing water situation. Superior Bathhouse Brewery is in an actual old bathhouse on Bathhouse Row in Hot Springs National Park, Arkansas, my hometown. Rose brews with spring water that comes out of the ground at around 140 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 60 C. And what she does with that water is delicious. Rose Schweikhart, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
Thanks, James.
It's so fun to be here and to talk to you. Of course, I've been here several times in person, but this is the first time that we've actually talked on the recording on person. The first time was with John Palmer and talking about your unique water situation. So were you able to put some of John's advice to work?
Yes, actually. That conversation still comes back to me fairly often as we're preparing water for brewing. Originally, we had discussed, using the famous spreadsheet to kind of alter the water chemistry, style dependent, and I've done that a few times, and it turns out very well. But and then I kind of made an artistic decision that since I have such unique water, I should let the qualities of the water come out in the flavor of the beer. And I do think I could pick my beer out of a lineup if, for example, 3 different breweries made the exact same recipe with the same yeast. I think I could taste my water in one of those beers and be able to identify it. However, the conversation about pH was very useful. So we do drop the pH. We use lactic acid to reduce the pH of both our sparge water and our mash water, just to help conversion, and just help the final product of the beer better. It's better for the mash process. But also some beers we do adjust. Like some of the big, I find with an IPA we need to add some salt to the water to make it a little more balanced. So we do some in practice. We do some of that. Yeah.
Cool. So where are we now? If turn back the clock when this was actually a bathhouse, we're on famous Bathhouse Row in Hot Springs National Park. Where are we now? Where would it have been back in the day?
Okay, well, we are sitting in the room adjacent to the brewery. It was formerly the men's pack room. So when you came to the bathhouse, it was a whole process. There was like a flow through the building. So people would come in the front doors and check in at the front desk, which we use as our bar now. And there are these famous little boxes behind the front bar. That's where people could leave, like when you go to the gym, you can leave your keys, or probably not cell phones, back in 1916. So you'd check in, and if you were a man or a woman, you would be directed men to the left, women to the right. That's why we have 2 sets of parallel marble stairs that go up the building. When the building was divided, so there was no connection between the men's and women's spaces except for staff access. And when you go up to our second floor, there's actually a line in the floor where there were walls. We have since opened them, but you can see the demarcation between men's side and women's side very clearly. So you would check in at the front desk and go up the stairs. Up the stairs were the changing rooms. So there were these big open rooms that had these wooden stalls, like bathroom stalls. They were made of dark stained wood, mahogany color. People would change, probably into bathrobes or nothing, towels, and then walk down the stairs. And so we are currently sitting in the room where they would come down the stairs, and they would take a sharp right into the men's bath hall. Men's bath hall is a room with original hexagonal, they're stone tiles, and the walls are a subway tile wainscot, and there were 36 bathtub stalls in this room, so it was very, very tight. They were marble stalls, very hard surfaces. I've seen pictures, and it was very harsh looking in there, actually. And these big concrete, enamel-coated concrete tubs were the basis of the tubs. So there were both sitz baths, which are little square tubs that you kind of sit your butt down in, and then there were full-sized bathtubs. So our brewery was the men's bath hall. And we currently have a glass wall between the 2 rooms. So James and I and Susan are looking through the glass wall at the brewery. But so we replaced what was not a glass wall with a glass wall for that purpose.
Well, it's very cool. I think we talked about it in the show before that you don't have to worry about. You didn't have to worry too much about waterproofing your flooring and things like that because it was already a bathhouse. So now you are doing very well, it seems, both in brewing the beers and making delicious beers, but also you have expanded beyond the bathhouse?
Yeah, I'm really proud to say that since we did our last show, which was probably 2 full years ago, I've been kind of continually adding to my operation. So when I first started brewing, I had 4 7-barrel fermenters. Every year since, I've added an additional 7 barrels, so now I have 6 7-barrel fermenters, and last February I picked up 4 10-barrel fermenters, so those are the big tanks in the middle now. We use those to make our larger, or more popular beers that we sell a lot of, especially in the summer, our lighter beers, Madden's. Ohio Club goes through a lot of Madden's, all that. So that's been exciting, and all of that was in anticipation for this January, so in 2 months, I have a 10-barrel brewery coming. I'm replacing my brew house. I have kind of a custom system that was kind of made for me. I had some opinions about how I wanted things to be and how we would be able to get it into the building. So I had a custom system made for me by a company that makes it's actually distillation equipment up in Maine. It's a very very homebrewy kind of setup. We're stirring, and that's not a bad thing. I like the hands-on process, but it's very labor-intensive, and it's tough to hit consistency time and time again when you're stirring things with a mash paddle, and we don't have a lot of temperature sensors. So I decided to bite the bullet and get a big girl system, getting an ABE, steam-fired 10-barrel system, which is interesting, except it will not fit in the building, so we'll actually be ripping out windows, or gently pulling out windows.
In case the Park Service is listening.
Well, of course, I had to go through a historical compliance review of the plan to get the equipment into the building, so I will have carpenters familiar with historic windows to very gently remove these windows. Won't do any repairs necessary, and we'll have to pull this equipment through a set of windows into the building and then put the windows back. So hopefully, actually, we will be improving the windows by repairing them while they're out. But so that's my on-site expansion. I'm excited to be able to. Basically, we can brew about twice a week right now because it's so labor-intensive. So I'm hoping to do at least 3 to 4 times per week, assuming I have the market to buy the beer. We started distribution this year with Central Distributors, and they're picking up 20 to 40 kegs per week, which I'm excited about, and they think we'll have a steady growth, so I want to be ready to move that beer. So James, you mentioned my new warehouse. In May, I purchased a 10,000 square foot warehouse in downtown Hot Springs. It's a cool old building. It was built in 1947, but intended to be a warehouse. And it's right next to our farmers market in downtown Hot Springs, so it's in a beautiful spot. And for years I've been driving past this building and thinking, wow, what a great warehouse that is, so close to the Superior. And last January it popped up for sale. And I just called my realtor and said, I'm probably going to buy this. Like, let's go look at it, but, So, and to my excitement when we went into it, it had been operated by a food company, a spice mixing and blending and storage company. So it was most of the surfaces were food compliant already. So I was able to, it wasn't like we were turning a garage or a bathhouse or something into a food storage facility. It was already a food storage facility. So that made it, so much better already. What do I plan to do with the warehouse? Well, first I have a business partner on that venture, not on the Superior, but on the warehouse. They make kombucha. They make the Lively Brew kombucha you'll see around the state. They were also looking to expand their operation, and we needed some shared facilities like a forklift and storage space, and a food certified warehouse. So it's nice to. Neither of us need the full 10,000 square feet, but we can both use it. So that's great. I currently keep my grains over there. The Park Service did not allow me to process grains here on site. I don't have a lot of storage space, and the explosion risk of crushing the grains was just nixed by the federal fire marshal, essentially. So I keep my grains down there. We grind them into food safe bins and roll them into a truck and bring them down here when we brew on brew day, so that's an extra step we have to do. But it's been nice. I have plenty of room whereas before I would get maybe, one pallet of grain per week, and it would be very disruptive. Now I can get 3 to 4 pallets once a month, and then pick them off the truck with the forklift and roll them into the building. And it's been saving my body and my mind a lot of stress. So that's been cool. My next plan for the warehouse is a canning machine. Now let's pause here. I'm going to get them to turn that music down.
We'll make it a pause that refreshes. I'm going to start sampling. Welcome to the brewery. Brewer's got a rock, right?
Brewer's got a rock. Turn it down!
So canning is next.
Yeah, one of the major functions of the new warehouse is to house our canning line. It's one of the smaller portable systems, and I could potentially mobilize it and bring it down to the Superior, except I can't even roll a pallet into this building, let alone up to my brewery. So believe it or not, and this sounds insane, but we've decided it will be easier to transport beer to the canning machine than transport the canning machine to the beer.
Can't you just get the National Park Service to reverse the pipes at night, and take beer to the canning machine through the pipes that take the water to you?
I think a beer pipeline would be a great idea. We would certainly make the news for that. I feel like I saw on Facebook some brewery in Belgium had built for very similar reasons. Their brewery was in an original historic downtown location, and they did not want to move their breweries, but they had to get more beer out of there. So I'm basically in the same situation as that 400-year-old Belgian brewery is. No, I won't flatter myself that much. But so we're looking at various portable tank options. Basically, I could see myself. I do have a truck, a delivery truck, so I could see us pretty easily pulling up out front in the middle of the night or in a low traffic time, not on Black Friday or not on Saturday in July. And pumping beer, right? So it would be finished carbonated beer, basically as if we were sending it into a bright tank, bring it down there. I've constructed a drive-in walk-in cooler. I have a 10-foot high, 10 by 20 walk-in over at the warehouse as well, so we can do some stuff. My other plan with the warehouse is to hopefully start a sour program and or a wild beer program where we can use wild yeasts, Brettanomyces, and things like barrels, where basically I cannot make my brewery room here any bigger here at the Superior. I've pretty much crammed about as much equipment as I can into it, and the larger brew house will be a stretch. But some beers just need to sit for a very long time. But I have to turn around my tanks here pretty quickly to meet demand, especially even in our own tasting room on the summer. We're very, very busy. We'll be brewing just constantly and moving beer around. So the warehouse will literally be that. Will allow me to store and warehouse beer that take, especially the styles that take a really long time to develop. Certain Brett strains, the lacto souring, and barrels. It's nice to let your beer sit in barrels as long as possible, so you get both the smokiness, the bourbon flavor or the wine flavor, and the oakenness.
Well, speaking of Brett, I took a little taste of this first beer. Cheers, by the way. Susan. My wife Susan's here, my silent partner. My soft-spoken partner. That's delicious. Tell us about this beer.
Thank you. I call this beer Bathhouse Warehouse Farmhouse. It's actually in all caps, so it's kind of Bathhouse Warehouse Farmhouse! Kind of to call attention to the difficulties of having a Brett program, especially when your tanks are, down across town, essentially. But we did make this here on site. It was an experiment. I've never done a 100% Brett beer before. We brewed this one in May 11th. I think we made it. I split it into two small tanks. So I got two. They're actually those plastic conical tanks. They're rated for beer production. They can't hold pressure, but they're plastic tanks. I figure if we're going to have a Brett program, we might as well turn a couple tanks into just dedicated to Brett. So plus they're cost effective for an experiment that could have potentially gone right down the drain. I didn't want to put too much capital into one batch. I didn't want to have a $10,000 batch of beer fail. So started these Brett tanks. I ordered custom yeast from Brewing Science Institute in Fort Collins, or I don't know, somewhere in Colorado. It's Brett Clausenii, which is this is the Brettanomyces that makes that very pineapple-y flavor, which is I'm always very fond of that pineapple flavor that this Brett is capable of making. What we did, we split into two tanks so we could pull it at two different times. So we pulled half of it after 3 months. It happened to be watermelon season when we pulled it. So so 1/4 of the batch, we actually blended with freshly juiced watermelon juice, and it turned this beautiful pink color. And it was it was really interesting. Nothing else added. I just added watermelon juice to the beer in the keg, and kind of shook it up and served it. Beautiful pink color. And it was great. It was a big hit at beer fests. We took it to a couple of the beer fests. The other half we just drank straight, because I didn't want to ruin all that work we had done, although the watermelon was delicious. But so after 3 months, it was very interesting. It was still pretty young. Again, the Brett takes quite a while to really develop, but it really had that tropical flavor I was excited about. It had a cool. It was quite cloudy. It hadn't even after kegging and refrigerating for a couple of weeks. It didn't drop out that much. So I was surprised, but I liked that flavor. Cloudy beer we'll talk about next has a cool flavor from the actual yeast cells suspended in the beer and the way they hit your tongue. So that was kind of a different beer. So 3 months after that, we kegged the rest of it. So just probably 2 weeks ago, we kegged this. And as you can see, it's crystal clear. Almost. It's very, very clear. Not filtered clear, but it really cleared itself up, even at room temperature. And the flavor, Brettanomyces also produce acetic acid. So there's a little bit of a soured flavor, but it's not. We did not introduce lactobacillus to it. I should almost send a sample out to a lab to make sure there wasn't a lacto-introduced the bacteria, but I'm fairly certain that just the processing time this yeast had a chance to put out a little bit of that sourness, which kind of contributes to that tropical fruit situation. Anyway, so I'm really proud of this one.
Yeah.
I think it was a worthwhile experiment where we filled the tanks right up again, the 2 little baby tanks. So we'll have another batch in next year. Next time. You tend to come back in June, don't you?
Well, yeah, around the holidays and in the summertime. Yeah,
exactly. So maybe I'll have the next batch. The next batch we are intentionally adding lactobacillus to as well. So.
Wow, this is. I mean, I'm done with my sample pretty much. It's very. I hate to overuse the words delicious and drinkable, but that's what that's what it is. The tropical fruit is there. It's very pineapple-y, but it's also got kind of a funky Orval note. You know, it's got that Brett Orval kind of note along with it. That's very complimentary. Susan, I don't know if do you want to say anything about this beer? She doesn't like to talk. Do you like it?
I do. I like it. It's good.
There you go. Thumbs up from Susan. It's I could drink a lot of that in a hurry. I just want to drink more. So what did you have to treat? So you used the Brett for primary fermentation, right?
Yes,
so what
exactly.
did you have to do differently, if anything, from standard beer yeast?
We didn't do very much except to keep the we brewed it in May, and these are unjacketed tanks, so we kept the temperature of the room pretty high just so it would stay warm enough for the yeast. Again, Brett takes a very long time to go, so when you pitch your Safe Ale 05 into your Pale Ale, when you're home brewing, the next day it's going crazy. It's the airlocks all over the place, and it might even be burping at the top of the bubble, and there might even be beer on the floor, and that's so exciting. The Brett did not do that, so I actually we actually had to put a CO2 meter. I would use a CO2 meter near the tank to make sure it was fermenting. So we did not get a real Krausen. Did not get that much in the tank. Like there was a little bit of foam buildup up inside the tank, but maybe only an inch or two. Not, we'll have, if we use an ale yeast at a warm temperature like that, it'll be on the floor out of a tank. But this yeast did not do that. So the funniest part was just kind of hoping it worked for a while. We didn't have those really great signs of fermentation. We had to pull samples and taste it. And also that Brett character took a long, long time to develop too. That little bit of that horse blankety flavor that you want out of a Brett yeast. It took so long to develop. So we were like, okay, it's making beer, but it just kind of tastes like a pretty normal ale right now. A little bit of a funky ale. So it's low. It's very low hopped. We didn't put too many hops in there because I wanted. Well, it was our first Brett, so I wanted to make sure it did the thing. So I definitely would do it again. I'd like to do it if I had an unlimited amount of money. I would love one of those big Fodors, which are the big barrel tanks. I have a warehouse where I could fill up one of those and let it sit for a year, and would be really, really cool. And in the meantime, probably keep doing some small batch stuff like we did.
Yeah. Well, it's gone. It was delicious. It's not heavily hopped, but it doesn't need to be heavily hopped. It's perfectly balanced the way it was. I'm holding the second sample now. I can't. If I were to hold it up, I couldn't see you through it. You talked about cloudy. It's a cloudy beer. So you're embracing the cloudiness, the haziness. Well, it's not. It's beyond hazy. It's cloudy.
It's cloudy. Yeah. Jim, my brewer, Jim Powell, and I went to San Diego in late July. We went to the White Labs Yeast Essentials course, which is a 2-day course for commercial breweries about yeast handling, which is something. Yeast is kind of like the voodoo of making beer, definitely. So just wanted to learn about the practices, improve our practices. While we were there, we got to hang out with White Labs. They have a lab where they develop, and they have a working brewery, and they develop all these strains. Have you been to their tasting room? That's so much fun. So we had a great time, not only talking to other breweries, but I think we went to 32 breweries in 5 days in San Diego. Yes, we Ubered or walked at all times. We did not rent a car on purpose. So when we were not in the yeast class, we were drinking the best beers that San Diego has to offer, which is again, there are 200 breweries in San Diego County right now. So here we are, the little kids from Arkansas. Enjoying, and every place had 1, 2, or 3 hazy IPAs, and I had actually never had one I never had one. I'm like, what is this? Is this a joke? But we came back and we really liked them, so we came back and decided to make one. Well, actually, this is our second we've used, experimenting with different yeasts. So the trick is to use a yeast that is non-flocculent as possible. So this yeast, this one is the White Labs New England IPA strain that they developed for this purpose. We made a previous batch with the Fermentus WB06 dried yeast, and that turned out pretty well. But that one dropped out in the keg. That went from cloudy to hazy pretty quickly. Whereas this one has been kegged for 2 weeks. It's still pretty cloudy, so it's working. Another thing we did to make sure it would stay cloudy, and we learned this technique from a brewery. There was a brewer at one of the San Diego breweries we were really enjoying, and it was a Sunday afternoon, and he was back there doing something, and of course we're brewers too. and he goes, you must be in town for the White Labs course, because I've had all these people stop by. So all these brewers are bugging the local brewers. But he was recirculating, so he had dry hopped. This is dry hopped with Simcoe, the lupulin powder, actually the cryo hops. He was dry hopping, and his technique for dry hopping was to recirculate it for 2 days.
So just while the dry hops are in there, just keep it moving.
Yeah. So pump on very slow, and he's recirculating this beer. So he would do it for 8 hours, 2 days in a row. And that I like to think that also kept the yeast in suspension, for sure. So we thought that would be a good technique to combine that dry hopping recirculation with the hazy IPA. Why would you want a hazy IPA? A bunch of the Arkansas breweries are making them now. So you'll have if you're in Arkansas, you'll have an opportunity to have Core made one. Lost 40's got their Trash Panda and their Milkshake series. I think a lot of people are making them right now. I think Flyway just came out with one. Again, I mentioned earlier that when you can actually taste the yeast in your mouth, like the actual yeast cells, they have a flavor. There's a texture and a flavor that the yeast add, which is interesting. And I also believe that the suspended yeast kind of hang on to the alpha and beta acids from the lupulin as well. So I think it kind of like, the milkshake is a great analogy. We're basically, drinking a milkshake. It kind of coats your tongue. There's an actual texture to it. That's neat. So I'm proud of this one. It tastes good. Customers are convinced we've added grapefruit juice. We have not added grapefruit juice. This is straight Simcoe hops and hazy IPA yeast.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of piney and along with the citrus as well.
It's definitely the piney.
Yeah. So I mean, it's hot, intense hop flavor and aroma as well. Susan, you were not necessarily you're definitely not a bitter beer gal, but what do you think about this one?
When I smelled it, I just thought of grapefruit juice. It smells like a glass of grapefruit, and it tastes really good. It's very citrusy, and it's not overly hoppy for me because I'm not much of a hopper.
Well, there's hoppy bitterness, and then there's hoppy flavor, and you can be one or the other or both. And this is definitely more along the flavor and aroma side. So what was your hopping strategy? What was your hop schedule?
It was hopped in the kettle like a pale ale. So there was a little bit of bittering hops and a little bit of aroma hops boiled. But then again, this was dry hopped with the hop powder. We use Beersmith software actually, and it attempts to calculate IBUs. I don't know. I haven't sent this one to a lab to see how close it is, but the calculated IBUs of this are only about 44, 46. But it is very, very hoppy. And we put a ton of Simcoe cryo, just the pure lupulin powder. It's like hop resin, or my guys call it hop keef. To make that analogy, it's the very concentrated, waxy resin from the hop flower. So hop cone.
Yeah, I've yet to use. No, wait a minute. I did. It seems like I used some in a dry hopped kombucha, maybe. I don't know. I'll have to go back and look at my notes.
I like them because it's less mass, so it makes from a logistical standpoint, it makes the cleanup little bit easier when we have to clean all of our chillers and everything like that. There's less particles, and also, if we're going to dry hop and put so much material into the tank, that's taking up beer room. As we draw out the beer, as we rack the beer into kegs or into a bright tank to harvest, to sell for money, we're losing some to the amount of space that the bulk of the hops are taking up. So it's kind of a win-win. Also, it takes up less storage room. I mean, it's a cool product. It's it's more expensive than normal hops, but you need a lot less of it as well.
Yeah, and you get some of your money back with beer. So you don't have a salad in the bottom of your fermenter at the end of it.
Yeah, there's that. Yep.
So I want to talk to you about a beer that we don't have here, that has been one of my favorites of yours, and I only had it once, and that was the jalapeno beer.
Oh yeah.
And we texted back and forth about that because I was so impressed with it. So this beer, as I remember, it was a pale ale, and the aroma, the pepper aroma off of that beer was amazing. This kind of almost bell pepper kind of aroma, and then the flavor of it was, it was a pepper as well, but the heat was not overpowering. The heat kind of came at the end where you want it to be. You take the sip, and at the end of the sip, it's like, oh, there's some heat. So it's not like burning your tongue so that you want to drink some milk afterwards. It was really well balanced, and really you did an awesome job of getting that hop flavor without that pepper heat.
Flavor, yeah.
So how did you do that?
Okay, I'll share my secrets.
If you want to. I mean, you don't have to, but...
No, I sure will. That's actually our DeSoto beer, which is our golden stout. We make a beer, quick detour, we make a beer called a golden stout. It started as a joke, but it is kind of funny. It's hopped like a stout. It has the body of a stout. I use Maris Otter grain as the base grain to kind of give it that British feel to it. But it's not. I don't use any roasted or dark grains. We use cacao nibs right in the mash, so it gets a chocolate flavor. So people, if you close your eyes, it tastes kind of like a stout, but you open your eyes and it's not a stout. That's called DeSoto's Folly, because he was on the search for gold and he never found any. Long story, but that's the one we turned into DeSoto and Fuego for the summer, which is a jalapeno beer. Basically, I love jalapenos. I love spicy food. I love Mexican food, and I think jalapenos are best enjoyed fresh. I think when you start cooking jalapenos, they turn into, I don't know, you just lose the sparkle that jalapenos lend to a beer, even in a salsa, like a fresh, I'd much rather have a fresh pico de gallo made with fresh jalapenos than a cooked tomato salsa. I feel like you lose all of the beauty of the jalapeno, which they're not that spicy, but they have a slow burning heat, and they're very bright flavored. Jalapenos are really great. I love fresh jalapenos. So we basically, I just talked about recirculating dry hopping. We basically recirculate dry pepper, wet pepper. So if you wanted to make this at home, I mean, this would be very applicable to a homebrew level. We take a hop bag, like a hop sack, put 8, here's my exact recipe, 8 jalapenos per 5-gallon corny keg. Drop that, chop them up kind of roughly so they don't get out of the bag and clog up your lines. Toss it in the keg, purge it with CO2, and then fill it with beer. And by the next day, it's jalapeno beer. So it's like we're dry hopping the beer, but that's fun. So you can do that with any beer, actually, really, to really good results. And if you wanted a little bit of pepper, like say you were making like a Mexican chocolate stout or something, you could totally toss a couple like poblanos or something right in your keg. It works. They're pretty. They taste pretty good actually when they come out too. Like one time we chopped them up into little coins to see if we could pickle them when they came out, and they actually turned into pickled jalapenos pretty well too. Nice. That was too much work, but yeah.
So just overnight is enough.
Just sit your beer on jalapenos. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's too easy. And I tell you, I've had a lot of pepper beers. And it's really hard to get that balance of the flavor and the heat, but that beer, especially the aroma, was just like, It smells so good.
Yeah, I don't think it would be commercially. I've never stored that for very long, so we'll make a couple kegs in the summer. It's kind of a summer beer to us. We'll make a couple kegs every week, sell out, and then move forward. I don't know if I could then either filter it or rack it into bottles or cans or kegs, and then I don't think that flavor would. I think it's kind of a volatile, fresh flavor. I don't think it would last very long. But if you were having a party this weekend, you could make a keg and drink it all, and it would turn out well. I just don't. That's a tasting room trick. Like I don't see myself being able to really replicate that on a real distributed scale, just because of the potential of. I don't know.
I've even had
peppers in your line. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, I've even had beer through a Randall with peppers in it, and it was good, but not nearly the impact that this had.
Overnight, I think the overnight helps. Cold storage on peppers.
So we're on the last beer of the flight. Now you have to talk about your big flight. You have this giant flight of beer. What do you call it?
We call that the beer bath. So we still have people walk in the door and try to take a bath because there are operating bathhouses still here on Bathhouse Row. So people see the bathhouse and they assume they could come get a bath here. So we have some very confused people who walk in and want to book a massage or whatever spa treatment. So the joke became, no, but you can have a beer bath, which is a thing. You see these German and Swiss, spas up in the mountains that you can actually take a bath in beer, and everyone thought that would be so funny if you could have a beer bath at the Superior Bathhouse. I don't want naked people in my brewery.
Not on purpose.
I just don't, and that's a waste of a lot of beer. I don't have that much excess beer. Sorry.
That's what the warehouse is for.
Yeah, I make 20 barrels a week, maybe 30 barrels a week. I'm not going to fill up a bathtub. That would be a very expensive bath. So,
everyone has their price, though, Rose.
That's true. Everything is for sale when you own a business. That is definitely the truth, including your dignity. But actually, I had a photographer come do a picture of me called Beer Bath. It was for a local magazine cover, and we put me in a tank of. We used like a sanitizer that foamed very nicely. So we basically made a bunch of sanitizer in this tank, tossed me in the tank. Yes, I was naked. And I'm kind of emerging from the beer, and he turned it like beer colored in Photoshop after the fact, so in post production. So the point was to actually take a beer bath. So if you've ever seen that photo, and if you've ever wondered, the top two questions are yes, I was naked, and no, it was not beer, and therefore no, we did not drink the beer afterwards, because that's also disgusting.
Don't fear the foam, as they say.
Don't fear the foam. So all this to say, and then.
What were we talking about? Oh yeah, the big taster.
The tasting flight of 18 glasses.
18 glasses.
It's 18 glasses. So we have 18 taps, and we decided we should make a flight of 18. So we made these giant flight paddles that take two people. Well, one person can carry them, but they cost $30, and you can. I'm really proud to say that all 18 taps are our beer right now. I have 18 beers on tap, so you can have a sample flight of all 18 of my beers if you really want to. We prefer people split them.
But if they're staying at the Arlington, which is within sight of the brewery, or across the street, you ensure that they use the crosswalks. But responsibility. Yeah,
we tend to make some high octane beers once in a while. I've got a 10, got a couple 9s and a 10 on the list right now. So if you had all the beers, you would definitely be feeling it. Not everyone likes every beer, though. That's actually the cool thing. I'll see a beer bath come back with a couple half fulls still on them.
Wow.
Okay, that's fine. That's the point is tasting beer.
Well, yeah, and that's in a way that's kind of like a little focus group there.
Right. Yeah, it's like, oh, they didn't like that one.
So that's cool, and one day when it's not 10 o'clock in the morning, I will try that. But 3 is a good sample for this time of day. So the third beer on the flight is one of my favorite styles, and it's not an outrageous style,
right.
But it's a Marzen Oktoberfest, and it's.
Do you like it?
I do. Big surprise. It's a very malty. No, I would tell you. I would cut it out if I didn't. No, I wouldn't cut it out. No, but it's a very.
We need to talk about this beer.
Yeah, Rose. Yeah, like I'm one to give you advice. But it's very malty. And I love hops, but I love to take a break from the hops every now and then. So talk about this beer.
Sure. This beer is. We tried to make it as. So it's a Marzen style. It's called Oktoberfest beer, like the instrument tuba. I played the tuba in college. I have my master's degree in tuba, so I tried to get the word tuba on something as much as possible. We make this. We start making this in July, and we make a couple batches for the fall season because people expect there to be an Oktoberfest or a Marzen this time of year. I wanted to get as many German ingredients as possible into this one, they're not necessarily from German maltsters, but it's a Vienna malt base, and then we use all three Munich. So we actually used Munich 60, which is the Cara Munich, the aromatic Munich 20, and the Munich 10, just to kind of have I wanted a real flavor spectrum of that Munichness, and that's I think that Munich 60 is where we're really getting that nice maltiness from. That and the gold. I use the Gold Pills. It's Breese's Vienna malt brand. It's called Gold Pills. Good. That's a good malt. And then the yeast. Okay, it's hopped. It's hopped with the Hallertau and Tettnang hops, which are so low in acid that we add a zillion of them to this beer. It's amazing how many pounds of hops go into this beer compared to even an IPA, just because they're so low in hops, and they don't. They just kind of give that. I don't know. German hops are very, very neutral. They're not aggressive. They're kind of. I don't know. Would you say grassy? Or what?
But I'm not getting a huge hop character out of this. I mean, it's all about the malt. I mean, I guess if you put enough vegetation in there, you risk getting grassy anyway.
It's pretty low hopped. I mean, classically, the reason for hopping is it's an antibacterial agent in your beer. So you kind of need, if you ever see a recipe for it that says use stale hops, that's why, because there's a medicinal property to the hops that help your beer. And actually, the guys at White Labs confirmed that is a very real thing. They said if you want to do an experiment, make an IPA because it'll help your keep your wort safe from critters, from bugs. Sure. Yeast we use the Bavarian lager yeast. With the White Labs makes that one. They make it seasonally.
But do you have a jacketed fermenter? So are you able to actually do lagering?
Yeah, I've got all 10 of my my 10 main conicals are all jacketed. So yeah, we lager.
Oh, okay.
We pitch.
Okay, you were talking about the plastic one not being jacketed.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, I've got my Brett tanks are unjacketed, and so is this is Hank the tank here in the corner. He's unjacketed. We do experiments in those beers, but the conical. So pitched at normal temperature, gave it a day or two to really get into the exponential growth phase of the yeast.
So normal temperature for you lager wise is.
And then we drop it to about.
No, wait. I'm asking for it. I'm pulling your secrets from you, Rose. So what's your lager pitching temp?
All right. So we pitch it at 72, but we set it to 68 overnight. So, but in the morning, but then we drop it immediately as soon as we get the bubbling airlock. We drop it to about 52, 54, and let it. So here's what we do. This recipe really needs a diacetyl rest, so we drop it immediately to 54 and then turn off the jacket. So after a day of being at 54, we just shut the cooling off and let it naturally creep its way up just from the room temperature. It takes a couple of weeks, or even in July, it's so insulated, these tanks. It took a week or two to get back up to mid-60s, then we see the signs of fermentation kind of start again, and then we drop it again. And then I like to hold this one for 4 weeks down at the lagering temperature. And it's funny, it will continue bubbling. This one is this one kind of, I have this image of an airplane in my mind, kind of approaching the ground and kind of coming to it, screeching to a halt. This yeast is I'm done, no more. But there's still a maltiness and a body to it. This one doesn't get very, very dry. This one doesn't attenuate as much as a real dry a dry Pilsner yeast was. So, and I found it to be very consistent as well. We've brewed this 3 years in a row now, 2 batches per year, and used this exact yeast, and it hits the final gravity we want, which I don't know off the top of my head right now, but it leaves some sugar remaining.
Tell me the yeast again.
Old Bavarian lager, White Labs. So that's kind of the story of this beer, I guess. So we lager it for 4, pitch it normal, drop it immediately, let it naturally come back up to temp, like a room temperature, and then drop it again for 4 weeks. So that's just to get that diacetyl. Do you pick up a lot of diacetyl in here?
No, I don't. I'm fairly sensitive to the the butterscotchy kind of stuff, but I don't get it unless the malt is masking it somehow.
That's possible. This yeast is kind of prone to that diacetyl flavor. So, another thing about this yeast is it's kind of sulfuric. I was going to say farty. I'll say farty. It's kind of farty when it first gets going. So, funny story. The day after we brew it, I walk in the building in the morning, and I'm like, uh-oh. But it clears up. But that's kind of the importance of letting a lager sit for a very, very long time. It will naturally scrub itself of those aromas.
When you have a fart bomb and you're also serving food, maybe that's not the best timing.
It's kind of in the first 8 to 12 hours when yeast really that's when the yeast are have so much material to consume, and they're it's called the exponential growth phase. The exponential growth phase for a minute. No.
So I'm betting Susan likes this one.
I do.
It's very malty. It's right. In fact, we've got a second family Thanksgiving to go to today. This is Black Friday this evening, and I think that I'll get a growler of that. It seems like that would be the crowd pleaser.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's good with food too. That one. So this is our second batch of the season. I like it better than our first batch. We gave it a couple extra weeks. We ran out of this in early October, and we decided to just let it go a little bit longer, just to see where that final gravity would end up and everything. And it's nice to have the luxury of time. I have more tanks than I need, which is a bad business decision, but it's good brew-wise. It's allowed us to accumulate enough varieties to have 18 beer on tap, which is insane. I never thought that would actually be possible. But also it allows us to just let beers sit in condition. They're always better after another week of just sitting in the tank, and we can get exactly the right carbonation level we want and get it ready. So it's nice. I'd rather beer wait on me than me wait on beer. So from that respect, it's a good business decision to have beer in the tank. So right now, every one of these is full. It's way too much beer.
Well, we'll try to help you today, Rose.
Grab you a half gallon. That'd be great.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. I mean, obviously, we could do 6 times more of the conversation.
I'm gonna have a sore throat by the end of that.
You need a beer. So I'm so happy that we could finally sit down and drink some beers together and talk about it. You obviously know what you're doing because I don't think I've ever had a bad beer here. I've had some beers that I might not have favored over others, but that's just preference. You do great work, and so cheers to you.
Thanks. I've got a great team, great building, great water. I'm excited.
Come see Rose down at Superior Bathhouse Brewing in my hometown, Hot Springs National Park, Arkansas. Thanks, Rose.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again to Rose. Susan and I had lunch afterwards there at the brewery and tasted more delicious beers, such as her Scottish Ale, the Belgian Triple with candy syrup that Rose made, and a vanilla cream IPA. Very nice indeed. And I took some of the Partaguile beer that I made with Steve the other day, and I took Rose's tip and added jalapenos in the secondary. So stay tuned for more on that beer in a future video episode. Hey, don't forget about the free gifts that you can get for signing up for the American Homebrewers Association. as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, and gift certificate bundles from highdravitybrew.com. If you have brewing questions, and don't forget to send in your disaster show stories before Friday, so that you can get on the disaster show, the annual disaster show. In the meantime, if you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to James at basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Thanks to everybody supporting us through our Patreon page. Special goodies coming your way. Check out all of that at patreon.com/basicbrewing. Be sure to check out our DVDs, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, and Introduction to Wine Kits. You can find them all on our site. Get a free Basic Brewing bottle opener with any DVD combo, and you can check out our Basic Brewing shirts in the store as well. You can find our logbooks where you can track and log up to 50 batches of beer. Check all that out at basicbrewingshop.com. Don't forget you're going to join the American Homebrewers Association and subscribe to Brew Your Own magazine through the associate links at basicbrewing.com. That's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dodson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. So long.